Welcome to Cattle Connect, your insight into Alabama's beef cattle industry. I'm your host, Kayla Greer, and this is Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Welcome back to the Cattle Connect podcast, and I guess I should say Happy Valentine's Day. We hope that you have a steak dinner planned with your favorite cowboy or cowgirl tonight. And speaking of favorite people, Erin and I have had the great pleasure to see some of our favorite colleagues come to town, as last week we kicked off the 2025 Alabama legislative session. The busiest 105 days in downtown Montgomery brings lawmakers and lobbyists to town as we work to protect our respective industries and all work together to move Alabama forward. And this year is absolutely no exception. And today I'm joined by my trusty co-host, Erin Beasley.
Hey, Kayla, good to be here.
And Erin and I are honored to be joined by a good friend of ours, the House Rules Chairman, Representative Joe Lovvorn of Alabama House District 79. Chairman, welcome.
Oh, Kayla, Erin, thank y'all for having me. Honored to be here.
Representative Lovvorn, he hails from the Auburn, Alabama area, and he has a great career. You've done a lot of different things, Mr. Chairman, but we know that we can't steal your thunder there. We'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, because I know you've been involved in a lot throughout your career.
Well, I tell you, I live in a community of Auburn that's expensive to live in, so you got to do a lot of different things. Just like a lot of our cattle friends out there, you got to wear multiple hats. And I grew up in Randolph County on a small poultry and cattle and row crop operation, and had my first cow when I was 5, and kind of built up from there with the help of my dad, and he's still a cattleman through and through, all through each day. And I went off to college in Auburn and started working as a firefighter, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. So I finished a degree in ag economics, and then went back to school and got my MBA, and still enjoyed what I was doing in the fire service. So I decided to make it a career and stayed with the fire service, and then got into other small businesses and a little bit of farming on the side, and then grew into a marriage, and then now I've got 2 teenage boys at 17 and 16, and then 8 years ago was elected to the Alabama House of Representatives. So it's been quite a ride and very blessed along the way, and just a fun thing. I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've been given, and a lot of fun along the way.
Well, we are grateful for the role that you have played, certainly since you came into the House. That's when I got to know you. You said 8 years ago now. And it's really been a treat to watch you grow in your leadership with the legislature. And I knew you had an ag background, but probably we didn't realize just how strong. Kayla and I know that, but I know for our listeners, it's always great to hear that we have somebody that's in a position of power in the legislature, as you have, and you have those good ag ties.
Well, I tell you, I wouldn't trade anything from having my ag ties and growing up on a family farm. And it's about an hour and a half from my house in Auburn to my dad's farm, and certainly help out in any ways I can. And I recently purchased a cattle farm in Tallapoosa County, mainly so that my boys could understand what working on the farm's like. So they can go spend an afternoon trying to tidy up fences and work on a tree that may be down and check on things, and that's the whole purpose. I tried to buy something a little closer, mainly for them. And I tell you, anytime you meet anyone that's tied to some level of agriculture background, you don't have to worry about work ethic and accountability, because they understand that it's important. And so that's I wouldn't trade anything for my ag background and affiliation today.
Very good. Well, thanks for that info. I guess we'll kind of get into what we wanted to talk about today. And one thing that we know with just talking with members and stuff is, the legislative process is not something that maybe everybody knows about. And so we were hoping that you could maybe start with a little bit of the mechanics of kind of how the session works and how the bodies work and kind of go week to week, day to day.
Oh, certainly. Well, the Constitution 1901 for Alabama established the rules and regulations that we fall under, and one of those that has not really been modified that much is the days that we meet. And we meet 30 days out of 105 days. So That's 30 legislative days, meaning we're on the floor of the House or Senate voting, and we have 105 days to make that happen. So that's basics of what it is. And this we have 2 years where we start in February, 1 year we start in January, and 1 year we start in March. So it's a pretty set process. I can tell you pretty far in advance when we're going to meet. And once we get started, we have already moved through the fifth legislative day for this session. So we're moving right along through those 30 days, and we will continue to work. The latest we could be here is mid-May, but I'm very optimistic. We may be out of here late April or very early May.
Oh, don't get us excited now.
Well, tempting us with a good time.
I tell you, I can't have my kids getting out of school before I get out of work. So
That's true. Yeah. I agree with that. Well, Chairman, we've alluded to you as chairman a couple of times, and we've mentioned that you're the rules chairman. Can you elaborate on a little bit of what that means, what comes with that territory of that title?
Oh, sure, certainly. The Speaker entrusted and allows us as chairman of different committees to handle different issues, and I'm honored that he allowed me this position as rules chairman. And a little bit about how that works is we set the rules of how we will conduct business on the floor of the House of Representatives, but our key role is any bill that is filed must first go through the committee process, and once it rolls out of that committee process, it then comes to the Rules Committee for consideration of whether or not it's ready to go to debate and a vote on the House floor. So we spend most of our time setting priorities and working through bills with the sponsors and any advocates like yourselves that may have an issue with the bill or concern that they want to look at. And I tell people all the time, I work at the intersection of policy, procedure, and politics. And you can guess which one of those three I spend the most time working in. And so we try to make it not only just for efficiency of flow, but also is this what is right for Alabama, and it's what Alabamians want. I'm not saying we're all going to agree, and we shouldn't always agree, but is it the right direction that we're working and the people of Alabama that elected us are wanting us to go? So it's a great balance, and it's certainly a joy. It can be a busy role sometimes, but I enjoy the challenge and have a great committee that supports us along the way.
All right, Chairman, I'm going to toss a softball your way here. It's the question that everybody's been asking, especially as we prepared for the session to start last week. But from your perspective, and here we are now, we're 6 days into the 30 meeting days. What are the big topics that are going to steal the show this session? Last year it was gaming and workforce development. Before that it was these gargantuan supplemental packages. What are the themes circling around the halls this year that you're picking up on so far?
Well, one huge thing that we're working on is trying to make our streets and our cities and our country roads safer by supporting hiring more and maintaining more police officers out working to make our citizens safe. Law and order should not be a political issue, but unfortunately it has become one. We've got problems hiring people in any industry, and public safety is one that is truly struggling, especially on the police side. So we're going to do a package of bills that really supports those that are serving and try to work towards recruiting more, and more importantly, retain the ones we currently have. Make their life easier, try to create paths not only for their training, but how can we help their children? So if they're working or thinking about taking another career, if we can create a path or scholarship for their children, then that would incentivize them to stay on the force, continue doing their job. So you'll see a lot of bills dealing with that. And every year it's a focus with our military, both those serving and our veterans in the state, to try to find some ways to enhance their quality of life. They have answered the call for us, and we want to be able to answer the call for them. And we want people in the military that a lot of people pass through here, even if they're from different states, because of the bases we have close by and in our state. And we want them to have a great experience when they're in Alabama. And when they're done in their travels of the military, we want them to consider making Alabama their home, because a veteran returning to Alabama or coming to Alabama is typically a good citizen, a good patriot that our doors are open to try to welcome back to this state. So you'll see some bills dealing with that. And one item we're looking at that may be of interest to your members is healthcare costs continue to go up to provide for a family. I know our providers are struggling in our rural areas and our rural hospitals are certainly struggling, and we're doing everything we can to try to look at ways to try to keep health care opportunities available in this state. And I know the Farmers Federation is looking to another option to try to offer to their members a health care option that's not for everybody, but for people that are wanting to return to the farm, that are wanting to try to maximize their time worked in a farming role, where a lot of people are having to come off the farm to carry the insurance for the family, and trying to weigh out, is that the right thing for Alabama? Is it the right thing for those people? And try to see if that's an option or not. So we'll spend some time working on that as well. But I think your members would probably be very interested in that as well.
Saddle up your buckaroos and bring them on down to the museum. Located just 2 blocks from the state capitol, the museum provides fun and learning all in one stop as visitors explore Alabama's beef cattle industry. Learn more at bamabeef.org/themuseum.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, and that's something I think as we kind of wrap up our conversation today, I'll hit on. But I definitely wanted to take a minute and just, first of all, thank you for the role that you play. I think you do an exceptional job balancing. It's a balancing act when you're the rules chairman. I know you know that, and it's obvious. Your demeanor is really great for that job. You've done an excellent job of, y'all bring forward calendars. It's not always easy to bring those calendars forward because there is a lot of controversy in the legislature. So maybe one thing I would ask is how you balance. The Republicans have the supermajority. You have the votes on just about anything that's being brought forward, but how do you balance with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle so that you can continue to have that camaraderie across the aisle and be able to operate in a way that is positive for the people of Alabama?
Well, I think just in any situation, the number one thing is just to be honest with people, and I try to give people at least the second best answer, which is no. Because you can tell someone maybe and really hold up what they're trying to do. But if you tell someone, no, that's not something we're ready to move at this time, or no, that's not a priority for us at this time, and tell them why, then they can work towards either shaping it to where it could work for all our parties or not, or move on to something else. So I try to, first of all, be very open and honest with all members, even members in our own caucus. I have to tell that we're not moving their legislation because several factors can come into play. But it is a delicate balance, but I just try to be respectful to everyone that brings it, because it's a passion to them. Even though it's not a passion for our caucus or our members or maybe for the state, it's a passion to them, or it's important to someone in their district. So we just try to create ways where people can serve the people of their district, but we still keep things in line with what's good for Alabama and good for the Alabama people to create an opportunity for all Alabamians. And if you look at through that lens on every bill, then you really can have clarity of where we need to go, or sometimes, more importantly, where we do not need to go.
Great advice. Very good.
Well, Erin, we are beginning to wrap up on time for this week's episode, but I think that we should talk a little bit about our priorities from the ACA perspective, since this is kind of our legislative kickoff episode. Do you want to maybe start about where we're laying our focus this year?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Kayla. And Representative Lovvorn has already alluded to the health plan that Alpha is working on. That's certainly something that we support, and we'll try to help them in any way we can with our friends over on the Southern Boulevard. We know that is an opportunity that could be very beneficial to a lot of our members. It's no surprise that we have a lot of crossover with Alpha members as well, and so we'll have our sights on that progress of that bill. Another thing, this for us, the agenda this session, maybe not the heaviest lifts that we've had in the past, but we certainly have a lot of items within the budgets that we want to make sure stay in position. And so specifically on the Education Trust Fund, we have several line items in there that are related to a lot of our youth development activities. And so very important to us to make sure that the items stay in play for the Auburn Livestock Judging Coach and Program, the youth livestock specialist at Auburn. And also there's an item in there for junior cattlemen programs that we've been able to utilize that money starting this year or in 2024 to be able to bump up a lot of the things that we do with our junior cattlemen. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention, the support for agri-science teachers and FFA programs in the state. That's a huge part of what we do. And so on the general fund side, there are obviously budgets associated with the Department of Ag and Industries that we're always watching. And then this year specifically, we do have an opportunity that we're hoping to increase the budget item for the SIP program, which is the Conservation Incentive Program.
Yeah, and just to elaborate a little bit on the SIP, so it's administered through the Alabama Agricultural and Conservation Development Commission, which is housed in the Alabama Soil and Water Conservation Committee. You all may have heard of those. There's a district in every county across the state, whether it's Montgomery County Soil and Water or Lee County Soil and Water over in your part of the world, Chairman. So administered through those outlets is the SIP program, the Conservation Incentive Program, like Erin said, and it houses 35 different conservation practices that can be implemented through an individual, and it's a cost share program, so it has the ability to share up to 75% of the cost of one of these practices that are approved. You can think, if you know the EQIP program with NRCS, you can think that it runs pretty parallel with that, so a lot of the same programs, but specifically for the soil and water, for the SIP program, they have some cattle programs that are unique to them, and that is a corral system, a portable corral system, squeeze chutes, and heavy-duty feed troughs. And so those are three that they kind of tout as their own practices. And so if I qualify, if I'm a cattle producer and I go and I apply for one of these practices and I get approved for a certain amount of money, I can go out, purchase that item, and then provide receipt of that practice being implemented on my farm, and they will remit a portion of the cost that was associated with purchasing that item. And right now, as it stands, that program is pretty low on the funding end. They get about $12,500 per district across the state, which we all know is great. It's welcomed, but it puts them in a position where they either have to fund one person with a bigger pot or several people with a smaller pot of money. And so we're working to maybe up that pot a little bit across the state. And so we're asking for a little increase on that budget. But we keep hearing that it's a year where budgets are a little tighter. We're having to think more conservatively. So it's going to make a little harder work for Erin and I as we meet with the budget chairman and get that budget through committee. But we're up to it, and we think that this is a really good platform, and it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, just being out and about in the countryside, you always hear about what can we do for our young and beginning farmers, what can we do for those that are entering the industry, and if there's an opportunity for us to provide, funds in a program that a young person could invest in infrastructure on their farm, which is what this is allowing them to do. We feel like that's a pretty good effort on our end to be able to get a plus up in that area. So hopefully we'll have some success in that. We'll keep everybody abreast as we go on. But, we'll see what else pops up because, Kayla, as you and I always know, we play a lot of defense too. And so there's always something that could pop up that's not necessarily good for our industry, and we'll have to work on that.
That's right. Well, I don't know about you guys, but as we're recording, it's a Wednesday, which means it's a committee day, and we all have a full schedule today, and we probably all should get back to the State House. Chairman, thank you so much for joining us on the Cattle Connect podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Erin and Kayla. Y'all do a great job advocating for our industry, and I appreciate y'all having me here today.
I'm going to wrap up this episode with a reminder that we will not air next week, because hopefully, instead of listening to us on your iPhone, you'll be with us in person at the 82nd Annual ACA Convention and Trade Show in Birmingham. It is not too late to register to attend the event. Hop online to bamabeef.org/events, learn about the event, come on up to Birmingham, the BJCC, there in the heart of downtown, and explore our event. We have lots of educational opportunities, a trade show, lots of fun things to do, great for the whole family. Y'all come on out. Again, we will not air on the Cattle Connect podcast next week because we'll be busy in Birmingham. And with that, I'll leave you to it. We'll be back in 2 weeks for more Cattle Connect podcast. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when our next episode goes live. And until next time, remember, beef, it's what's for dinner.